Many of the problems we face today as a society are with those in power. Whilst I complained on my blog about the completely conservative makeup and nature of his current government, I'd like to use this opportunity to talk more about the individual cabinet members themselves. Of course, I won't be going over all of them because I don't have the stomach, but I will be pointing out one you probably will know, one you probably won't, and a Lib Dem who is the only one with any semblance of power in this current government. I won't be talking about Prime Minister today either, because, well, he's a slimy git. And if you can't realise that on your own, then there's no helping you. So without further ado, here's an tyranny from Charlie Brockett. First on the list of these people who have never known what it's like to be poor, feel the sting of recession, or whose idea of a terrible place to live is one that doesn't have 400 acres of their own grounds, is Mr. George Osborne, a man of all the appeal and likability of a wet dishcloth wrapped around a cauterised stump. As privileged a man as it's possible to be in Britain today, yet not only a vast personal fortune, but also the title of Baronet and Ballantaylor and Ballylemon in Ireland, educated at two extremely expensive and exclusive London schools, and then a member of the Bullingdon Club during his time at Magdalen College, Oxford. He is in charge of the country's finances at a time in which the poor need most and the rich need to be made to pay for the mess the country has been forced into on their behalf. In their manifestos, each political party outlined many ways to attempt to deal with this. However, all that has been brought in under Mr. Osborne's inspiring leadership is a way of making sure that British money, which would otherwise be taxed, instead goes through offshore accounts that only the rich can afford, effectively gifting massive corporations and rich individuals an easy backdoor into which to hide all their money completely legally from the taxman, whilst taxing smaller companies, businesses and individuals who cannot afford to do a long, complicated bit of creative accounting. Mr. Osborne, however, is simply one of the branches of a much larger problem. No, wait, sorry, Philip Hammond. I always get those two confused for some reason. Probably because they're both self-centred, toadying, opinionated arseholes who don't understand what the needs of a regular motorist. Lovely man that he is, on an episode of Question Time in October 2010, Mr. Hammond, that's Philip, not Richard, they're not that desperate for ratings to get on Question Time, accused people who committed suicide at Wimbledon Station of doing so with monotonous regularity. The suicide community, however, has taken Mr. Hart and now attempts to surprise drivers with lurid costumes and may change station regularly to break the monotony. Although, interestingly, the amount of people who commit suicide wearing clown costumes had stayed level throughout this period. This also led to the funniest joke being made in psychiatry, and says Freud got people to take his idea seriously, with Dr. Peter Byrne of the Royal College of Psychiatrists insinuating that people in the government were mentally ill. Mr. Hammond, on the same episode of Question Time, also refused to acknowledge he'd flipped taxes on his shares by giving them to his wife. But he had shares as an MP anyway, is perhaps slightly more of a problem. As he said himself, MPs are not allowed to have any. He also borrowed the maximum amount possible from the taxpayer to buy his second home in London, despite living in the commuter town of Woking, 45 minutes away. And you can check that, it's 45 minutes to Westminster Station, not just to London. Thoughtfully though, he did give the £8 he didn't use back, which was generous of him. I personally wouldn't bother. As a result of the criticism, Mr. Hammond has told his local paper that he would pay back any profit he makes on the future sale of his second home to the public purse. Something that surely he should be doing anyway, seeing as we're the ones who paid for his second home. Mr. Hammond has also spent £1,270 of taxpayers' money per year on newspapers, and once spent £24 of public money on 8 teaspoons. Although I suppose £24 is a small amount of money to spend on teaspoons nowadays, what with the teaspoon shortage of the past few years. As a poor student, I personally am now forced to stir my tea with a fork because I can't afford a teaspoon. As far as his previous experience relating to being Transport Minister is concerned, Mr. Hammond has previously refused to actually support his opposition to a rise in car parking charges at Weybridge railway station, which shows Mr. Hammond really cares about the downtrodden local commuter. A Liberal Democrat! I nearly forgotten about them. Shortly before I recorded this, news broke that Mr. Cable was engaged in a U-turn over his planned, and long expected, scrapping of ECGD. A shady governmental organisation that underwrites insecure business deals around the world, including those based around oil pipelines, arms deals, that has previously come under fire for its ethical standards. He's announced he will only not scrap it, but he's adding to it green technology, which is previously struggling to find funds under the current government. Which I suppose is a good thing, funding green technology. It's just a shame that it's with arms deals and other risky business ventures involving actors with questionable ethics. It's a bit like Blofeld converting his volcano lair to run on wind turbines. However, Probably Vince Cable's biggest battle so far as the most important Lib Dem in government is his war on Rupert Murdoch. The Murdoch's planned takeover of Beast AB, in which they already own a controlling share, as they do in the vast majority of English journalism, will be the final straw in turning Sky from an intentionally well-meaning, if poor, BBC knockoff into a right-wing, dribble-flecked demagogue platform like the mighty and all-powerful Fox News in the USA. The Complaints and Competition Commission that Cable chaired to resolve whether this evil corporation should be allowed to impose their rhetoric on the British public, unrestricted by anything such as journalistic integrity, fact-checking, or indeed general knowledge, was forced to disband, costing the public £300,000 because he mentioned to some undercover Telegraph journalists that he has waged war on Murdoch. Now, I personally don't see a problem with this. As much as you can question the bias of his chairing the committee with his views as such, I don't see why a man should let his personal integrity, and indeed the integrity of the country, be undermined by a Conservative government who are over Murdoch's for helping them to get into power in the first place. News Corp is an organisation that thrives on institutionalised racism, conservatism and outright lies. That should tell you enough as to why Mr Cable has decided to do all in his power to block the Murdoch's slow and creeping takeover of British media and journalism. Now, I don't want to sound like I'm totally defending Mr Cable, but the way I see it, he is the only hope for people to actually have their wants and desires listened to in the current government. In a cabinet full of Conservatives who desire to make the rich richer and the poor to not notice, he is the Liberal Democrat in any position to block any of this. If he is prevented from doing so by the Conservatives, simply removing him from his place at the heads of committees that fall under his jurisdiction as business secretary, and is forced to make U-turns about policies he has been planning to instigate since he got into power, what is the point in having him in the cabinet in the first place? He, like Nick Clegg, has been demoted to a whipping boy, the sad puppy dog face of a government whenever unsavoury news has to be broken. However, unlike Mr Clegg, I would like to think Mr Cable will show some backbone and attempt to fight against the reduction in importance of his duties, and will be a real pain in the arse for the Conservative cabinet for some time to come. Until, of course, News Corp discovers some shock revelation, builds it into more hype than is necessary, or indeed it is worthy of, and he's forced to step down due to external pressure, as well as the fact he's being slowly squeezed out of Conservative government. Well, that's my ranting over for another week. If you have any questions, complaints, require clarifications, have any hatred, or indeed praise, if that exists on the internet, please leave a video or a comment below to say so. Thank you, and I'll see you this time next week. Although I say see you, I won't see you, you'll see me. I haven't quite worked out how to get YouTube to watch you yet, watching me. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure I want to see you watching me. Anyway,